I'm Meredith, and welcome to my backyard. I am an enthusiastic self-taught gardener and a plant nerd. I have been gardening for 6 years now through containers and also in-ground gardens, and I've learned a lot through trial and error, probably just as many failures as successes, and a lot of plant research. So I want to share some of that experience today by sharing with you 2 design concepts that you can use to create a beautiful container garden for your porch or patio this fall. So I've updated this container that I made in the summer with some new fall favorites, and then I've kept some of the flowers that I planted in summer that will continue to do well in the cooler weather. The first design concept that I want to introduce is this idea of thrillers, fillers, and spillers. So every plant can be categorized into one of these 3 categories based on its growing habit or the shape it forms as it grows. So thrillers are plants that are at least 12 inches tall or the tallest in relation to other plants in the container. And they often have interesting foliage or bright, showy flowers, something that draws your eye into the container and thrills you with its interest, if you will. So in this container, I have chose this purple fountain grass up here in the back. So I love how tall this is, and not only how tall it is, but also this really pretty, interesting purple and green foliage, and then it gets these fun little seed heads in autumn that rise above the whole plant. And I love that not only does it provide a good backdrop, it's just got this really flowy, natural form that just really spreads over the container and provides an interesting backdrop for the rest of the plants that are 8 to 12 inches tall or medium sized in relation to the other plants in the container. They have a mounding or clumping growth habit, which means they form sort of a rounded shape as they grow and create really interesting like circles, blocks of color in relation to the other plants. So in this container, I have chosen Sedum Autumn Joy over here on the side. See these pretty pink flower heads. They start out green in the summer, and then they turn this beautiful mauvish pink, and then eventually as the weather gets cooler, they're going to turn this kind of rich red burgundy color. Over here I have an orange marigold, and then in the middle here I have this blue fescue. I don't know if you can see it, but it's there. It's this blue fescue grass, and it's going to get taller. It's kind of small right now, but it should fill in, get about 10 inches tall, get to about here. I love how it kind of complements the flowy texture of the fountain grass and contrasts really well with the other fillers I have on this level. And then over here I have tickseed or coreopsis, and this has a pretty pale yellow flower with a burgundy center. And this is also a little shorter because it is young, but it will start to fill in this space and get to about here. So those are the 4 fillers I have in this container. The sedum, the fescue, and the coreopsis are actually all perennials in my area. So at the end of the fall, I'm actually going to take these out of the container once I refresh it for winter and put it in my garden bed. So I'm going to continue to get value year after year in my garden from these plants that I got, because they're going to keep coming back in the spring and summer of next year and years to come. The last category are spillers. So these are plants that are less than 6 inches tall, and they have a trailing or spreading habit. When you're at the plant store looking for plants, you can often look at the label, and these will be described as ground cover or vines. Those are going to be perfect for this role, because not only do you want it to fill out this lowest level in the container, but it's really fun when it spills over the side. So in this container, I have chosen potato vine, which has this really interesting green and yellow foliage, and that's a vine, and that's going to spill over really nicely in the front. And then over here I have lantana. It actually doesn't have any blooms on it right now, but it's got a lot of little buds, so I can't quite show you the flower. But it's got this really pretty pinkish orange flower that'll spread out all over the plant. And this is not technically a vine or a ground cover, but this variety does have a spreading habit, so it's not going to get super tall, but it is going to spread its branches out and fill in this lower level really nicely. So by combining these three categories of plants, thrillers, fillers, and spillers, you can create a really interesting vertical symmetry in your pot. So you have three layers, the tallest, the medium, and the lowest, and spilling down the sides. And by doing this, you're actually extending the length of the pot, the length and height of the pot, to make it look bigger than it actually is, which is super important if you have a small container or even just a small patio. You're going to make the pot seem bigger, and you can definitely put smaller containers on plant stands or on a porch step, and that's going to make a really big statement because it's going to definitely make it look bigger than it actually is. So you can also play with horizontal symmetry in your pot, and by doing that, the ways you can do that are like either creating a mirror image or creating asymmetry. So in this pot, I have chosen asymmetry, which makes a little bit more of an informal, natural look. I have chosen different plants for each side, different colors, different heights, and so it really looks like I just dug up a piece of nature and put it in a pot. The other option would be to use mirror imaging, so you would choose the same plant for either side of the thriller, or a plant, two different plants that are the same color, same height, and then you have your thriller and then maybe a spiller down the center. So the thriller and the spiller create this line down the center, and then you have the same plants on each side. And that's a more formal look if that's the style you're going for. And then you can also choose kind of a muted monochromatic color palette to also create a little bit more of a formal look by using that mirror image symmetry. The second design concept is color combinations. So a great choice for fall would be to use colors that are on opposite sides of the color wheel, really bold, contrasting colors. So if you remember the color wheel from art class, it's basically a rainbow pie. You have all the colors going in order of the rainbow around a circle, and you can choose colors that either complement or contrast each other based on that wheel. So bold, contrasting colors would be opposite each other, and this is a fun color combo for fall. The color combination I've chosen in this container is purple and yellow, and also blue and orange. So purple and yellow is really my favorite combination and what I wanted to be the strongest combo. So I combine the purple fountain grass, this yellow potato vine, and then the yellow coreopsis here to create that contrast. But then I also have a little bit of the blue-orange as well, with the orange marigold and then this bluish-green fescue over here. Another great combination for fall would be to use complementary colors, which are ones that are next to each other on the color wheel. And my favorites for fall would be to do red, orange, and yellow, or purple, red, and orange. And these are great combinations because they mimic what's naturally happening in nature during the fall, because they mimic the changing colors of the leaves. So the plants I've chosen here not only work together from a design perspective, but I've also chosen them based on the conditions that they prefer. So all of these plants prefer full sun and drier soil. And by drier soil, I don't mean they're desert plants and they never need to be watered. They don't like their roots to stay moist all the time. They prefer them to dry out a little bit between waterings. So it's a super low maintenance container. I really don't ever water it. Probably once this summer when we had a super dry spell, but it naturally will do fine based on the natural rainfall we get in this area. So if you are like me, you may have gone to Pinterest or magazines to get design inspiration for containers, and you may have gotten frustrated when you've tried out these designs and kind of copied exactly what they've done, and then you find they just don't last as long as you think they should. Granted, all flowers fade and annuals do die at the end of a growing year, but containers should last more than 2 weeks. And so I was always getting really frustrated by looking for inspiration and then getting disappointed with the results and thinking it was something I was doing. Eventually, through a lot of research and seeing these patterns, I realized that a lot of these pretty pictures that you might find on Pinterest don't explain what conditions these plants prefer. So sometimes they don't even specify whether the container should be in full sun or full shade, which is pretty important. Or they're combining plants together that don't prefer the same conditions. So a full sun plant with a shade plant, or a plant that needs its soil to stay moist all the time, and then one like these that it prefers to dry out. And so in that case, inevitably, no matter where you put it, something's not going to do well. And that's frustrating when I'm spending my time and money making this container. I would like it to last a full season, as opposed to just 2 weeks. Granted, if you want a fun container that looks really great during the week of a holiday, by all means, put together any plants you want, and it for sure will look good for about a week or two. But eventually, if you haven't chosen conditions or plants that prefer the same conditions, they're just never going to thrive together, because this is its own little microenvironment. You can't change how much water one plant gets in this container because it's all in one pot. So it's really hard to choose plants in different conditions that prefer different conditions when it's all going to be in the same condition. So to solve this problem, I have created an ebook where I have designed 6 container gardens that are specifically for fall, choosing these fall colors and using these design concepts, but also choosing plants that are going to do well in the fall, in the cooler weather, and potentially transition through the winter. So that, I'm choosing these plants that are going to go good together, so you can be confident that when you put them together, they're going to last through a season. They're not going to last 2 weeks. And if you're new to gardening, in this ebook, I'll explain how to figure out the sun exposure of your porch or patio, or whatever area you're putting your container in, as well as describing and explaining different watering requirements, as well as how to choose a container and how to set up that container for success. And you can get your copy of this ebook below by clicking the link, and it's downloadable. It's a PDF, and you can get it for $14.99. And as a bonus to this ebook that you'll get this fall, I'm going to send you a list of plants in the spring and design combinations that you can use to switch out your container in the spring to some plants for next year. So it'll be the same list of plants and designs that I send you in the fall, but it's just going to be for spring blooming, summer blooming plants, and some ideas for what to combine for those seasons. So the other bonus that I'm doing is you'll be invited to a virtual garden Facebook community. So I'm really hoping that this is a space where we can all share our gardening successes and maybe our gardening failures, so that we can learn from each other's mistakes. And it's going to be a fun, bright, happy spot on everybody's newsfeed, which I think is super important these days, because social media can get heavy sometimes. And so I'd love to create literally a virtual garden on social media where you can go to for inspiration and support in your gardening journey for many seasons to come. So I hope I've given you some ideas for how to start your container garden this fall, and hopefully you've gotten some value from the 2 design tips that I've given you, the thrillers, fillers, spillers concept, as well as some color combinations you can choose. But if you would like some more design ideas, or if you're new to gardening and you feel like you need a little bit more help getting started, then definitely get my ebook below for $14.99. I guarantee you it's going to be worth its value, because you are not going to waste your money on plants that die after 2 weeks, and you're not going to waste your time and energy creating something that just doesn't last and makes you think that you have a black thumb. Because, side note, I hate it when people say they have a black thumb. I don't think that's a thing. It's not a character flaw. I really think people just are missing information that they need to create a successful gardener, and that's all it is. So I really hope that this ebook and this video will help you solve that black thumb problem and turn it green, and give you a lot of joy in your outdoor spaces. Beautiful outdoor spaces are so good for the soul. They're places where you can rest, relax, enjoy time with friends. So I love creating beautiful outdoor spaces that I can enjoy. So happy fall, Happy gardening. Go get your hands dirty.